see, it's been a while since I've put up a video on my YouTube channel, and there's a reason for that. I am recovering from surgery. I think I've mentioned this in some of my update videos in the past, but let me give you a little background on why I had surgery and why I am sitting in bed here recovering. Let's see, was it a year, 2 years ago now? I got an Ehlers Danlos Syndrome diagnosis, which is a connective tissue disorder. I will be making that video just on my EDS story very soon. I'm getting to the point where I'm very close to being ready for that video. But long story short, in relation to this surgery, without going into too much gory detail, after naturally giving birth to 3 very large-headed babies and having faulty connective tissue because of Ehlers Danlos Syndrome, I had a 3rd to 4th degree uterine prolapse. If you don't know what that means, I'll let you Google it because I don't feel like describing details here. It was actually really, really bad for somebody in my age. Sometimes they see this kind of thing in little old ladies, but all of the specialists that I went to were like, wow, this is really bad for somebody your age, for somebody in their 30s. I'm almost 37. I'll be 37 in May. But this has been going on for several years now, since I've had babies. It really started when I had my first natural delivery, which was a 35-hour home birth, which was mildly traumatic. I don't think I've told that story yet on my channel. I think I need to tell Alex's birth story. But it was very long. Lots of agony. It had turned out that not only did he have a massive head, but he also had a very short umbilical cord. We didn't know that at the time, but I was pushing against the tension of his umbilical cord. It was like taut and tight when I was trying to deliver him, and so he was like bungee jumping, we like to say. His cord actually broke the moment he came out, and that could have been a very scary situation if it happened before he came out, but God had our backs and Alex was okay. But that whole story is a story for another day. Anyway, all of that strain that went on during that time in my abdominal pelvic area, on top of that, we had been, before I gave birth, we had been exposed to a child that had some sort of nasty virus. Just some snotty fever cough kind of virus. It wasn't coronavirus because this was back in 2013. Anyway, after I gave birth, I came down with this virus, and so did Bill, and so did brand newborn baby Alex. It was actually a little scary having a brand new baby with a virus. Thank goodness he was getting my antibodies through breast milk, but it was still kind of a little bit of a worrisome situation, but all's well that ends well. All that is to say, during my recovery, I was coughing. And if you have given birth before, this is a TMI video, but if you've given birth before, you know how painful recovery can be in certain areas. Add on coughing, and coughing hard, like to the point of almost throwing up because you're coughing so hard. It was excruciating, and it also made recovery very difficult because I was having a hard time lying down and lying flat on my back, or even lying on my side, because I would get into these coughing fits. So I was sleeping like kind of like I am now in bed, propped up, and so I also wasn't, my pelvic regions not getting the laying down rest that it needed. So that was a very, very difficult recovery, and all of those factors together created some prolapse problems. And then by the time I gave birth to Sophie, our second child, she was a much easier, much faster 6-hour labor. But even still, after her birth, then I graduated to like a 1st degree uterine prolapse. And then by the time I had our 3rd child, Teo, and after I gave birth to him and was recovering, I kind of graduated to a 3rd to 4th degree prolapse. It was about 3rd degree, and then over the last couple of years, it got to be like 4th degree at times. That combined with having faulty connective tissue made for a kind of serious problem for me in that region. I went to a regular OBGYN to seek help for it, and she sent me to have pelvic floor physical therapy, which I think for the vast majority of people is really effective and really works. So I thought I would give that a try, and I did. I ended up going for, I actually started going before I had Teo, between Sophie and Teo. So I went for about 2 years in between, and then continued. Even after I stopped, I continued the exercises at home and everything. In that time, my pelvic floor got stronger, but it did nothing for my prolapse problem, like at all. Like you would normally see, physical therapy of that kind would almost completely solve the problem, or it can greatly improve it. So that's when I went back to the OBGYN, and she's like, you really, this really is pretty bad, especially after doing physical therapy for so long and it not making that much of a difference. You really should go see a specialist. I mean, a very specialized specialist, which is a urogynecologist. And so I went to someone at the university, so some of the top doctors in the area, and I ended up seeing 2 doctors. Loved both of them. Both of them were amazing. But the first doctor I saw there, he was the first doctor that, after taking a look, was like, you might be looking at some kind of connective tissue disorder here, because it really is so bad for somebody your age. Ironically, within the weeks before my doctor's appointments, I had been watching a couple of YouTubers that I follow, and they had mentioned that they had received an Ehlers Danlos diagnosis. And before that, I had never even heard of it before. I had no idea what it was. But then when they were talking about their experiences, I was like, I have that. I have that. That sounds familiar. And so I was starting, you know, to make some connections in my head, like maybe this is something I should look into for myself. Then when the specialist at the university was like, you might have a connective tissue disorder, we might be looking at Ehlers Danlos Syndrome, I was like, oh, a professional is actually telling me this, like a very specialized professional that, you know, this is what they do all day, every day. So I really looked into it, like really started researching it at that point. It wasn't that doctor that gave me my EDS diagnosis, it was actually my primary care physician. But I do thank that doctor for making me aware of what could be behind all of these health issues I was having, and particularly this one that was so physically uncomfortable and problematic for me. At that point, he was basically saying there's a few different options that you can do for repairing things in there. Probably the most effective repair is doing a hysterectomy, which is removing the uterus. Did a lot of thinking about it and researching it, and at this point we had our 3 kids. Bill and I discussed it, like we're done. We were done having kids, and so that wasn't so much an issue of getting my uterus removed. And we really thought, this is something that I need to do. So we went back to the doctor, and he said that he was going to transfer my care to his colleague, because his colleague was the one that does the robotic surgery, which is like the ultra specialized fancy, they use this robot to do your surgery kind of thing. And she was the one that did that specialty, and so he referred me to her, and loved her as well. She has been amazing. She's just an incredible doctor. Really good bedside manner, really listens to my needs and like believes me when I tell her things, and really takes me seriously when I'm talking about all of my health stuff. And she also really took my Ehlers Danlos Syndrome seriously as well, which was so refreshing because so many doctors haven't even heard of it. Both of these doctors were really familiar with it and working with it. And so I did, you know, the consult with her, and then I was like, okay, I think we're ready to start the process of moving towards this robotic laparoscopic hysterectomy, which they were also going to put a mesh in me, but I'll talk about that down the line here. I had a pre-op appointment in February of 2020. And it just so happens that that was the exact same day that I got my breast cancer diagnosis. I had actually had back-to-back appointments that day. I went to this pre-op appointment fully thinking that I did not have breast cancer. If you haven't seen my whole breast cancer story, I will link it right here in the cards if you want to watch my whole finding out that I had breast cancer at age 35 and the whole process and treatment that I went through and everything. Hence, I went through chemo. My hair is growing back now. It's very, very curly with chemo curl. Anyway, that was truly unexpected. Like, I really just thought that it was some sort of cyst or something like that, considering it's not in my family history. Like, I have a really healthy lifestyle, yada, yada, yada. So I was expecting to have these back-to-back appointments, one for my pre-op to prepare for my surgery the following month. But then I went a couple hours later and had the appointment where they actually told me that I had cancer. And that was a shock. It was a huge shock. I mean, I remember talking to my urogynecologist at my pre-op appointment saying, yeah, I have this appointment, you know, I had a mammogram, it's probably nothing, like really thinking it was probably nothing. And we'll probably just carry on. If for some reason, some wild reason that I have breast cancer, I'll send you a message, we'll let you know, we'll postpone things or whatever. So sure enough, I had to send her a message saying, hey, guess what? I have breast cancer. That means we had to postpone my hysterectomy surgery because I had to get my mastectomy and do chemo and all of that. And she was just as surprised as I was. She, you know, thought it was so unlikely that I would actually have breast cancer and all of that. But she was so supportive. And she's like, you go do all the things that you have to do. And when you are on the other side, just reach out to me again and we will start this process over again. So fast forward through all of the cancer stuff, which I'm just going to gloss over now because I have all of that documented in that playlist, which I will put in the cards here. So fast forward to being on the other side of my cancer journey and was feeling, you know, mostly recovered from chemo and everything. I was like, all right, I think it's time to move forward with this hysterectomy. Let's get this done. Let's get it out of the way. So I messaged her again, and this was December. I ended up talking with her and finding out that because of COVID, my surgery, my initial surgery that would have been in March of 2020 would have been canceled anyway because of COVID, and they were canceling all elective surgeries. So even if I hadn't had my breast cancer diagnosis, they would have had to cancel the surgery and postpone it. So I guess that worked out in some weird way anyway. We were planning for me to have a January surgery. So then about a week or two before my scheduled surgery, they called me, and again, this was right at the like peak of the COVID surge right after the holidays. And they're like, we're so sorry, we're going to have to postpone and reschedule your surgery. Again, this surgery that I was supposed to have a year ago was postponed until March. So here we are in March. It finally happened. So that is the whole long story of how I got to be sitting here recovering in my bed right now. Last week, I went in and I finally had my hysterectomy. And I am so relieved to have it done now. It is such a relief. But recovery has definitely been difficult. This is my first like real abdominal surgery that I've had. I only ever had vaginal births, so I never even had a C-section. I did have a uterine polyp removed when we were experiencing infertility, but that isn't even considered to be a full abdominal surgery. So this was definitely my first full abdominal surgery. So I'll just explain a little like what they did and my recovery and that kind of thing. So basically what they did was they removed my uterus and fallopian tubes, but they left my ovaries and the cervix. So I've had people ask me, well, why didn't you just get everything removed? And some people also thought that the reason I was getting a hysterectomy is because of my breast cancer, but that's actually not the case. It's actually because of my Ehlers Danlos Syndrome, not because of the breast cancer. Some people do have to get a hysterectomy with breast cancer if they have the BRCA gene, which is the gene that is strongly associated with genetic breast cancer. There is also a strong association that if you have that gene, you are also very, very prone to ovarian cancer. So they suggest that if you have the BRCA gene, after you're done having kids, that you get uterus, ovaries, cervix, everything out to prevent cancer. But that's not the reason that I was getting it. I do not have the BRCA gene. In fact, I don't have, they did a whole series of like 40 different genes. I don't have any of them. So I'm at a very low risk for ovarian cancer. So, you know, we were kind of going back and forth. Should we take the ovaries, leave the ovaries? The thing that was the ultimate deciding factor for me was when I was done with all of my cancer treatment, they put me initially on tamoxifen, which is an estrogen blocker, because my cancer was almost 100, it was like 99% estrogen positive, meaning that it was fed by estrogen basically. So there are two treatment options for preventing it from coming back, preventing the estrogen from getting to your breast tissue basically. And one of them is taking the tamoxifen, which is an estrogen blocker, and the other is doing Lupron injections, which basically shuts your ovaries down completely and basically puts you into menopause. So I actually tried doing the Lupron injections and my body was not happy with that. I was having massive fatigue. I mean, I already have a lot of fatigue anyway because of my EDS, but this was like massive fatigue. And I was extremely irritable. My poor family. I was not fun to be around when I had that injection, when my ovaries were completely shut down. So having that conversation with my surgeon, she's like, yeah, well, that gives you a really good idea. Shutting down your ovaries will give you an idea of what it's like if we take them out. So she's like, yeah, you probably want to leave them because they're still doing something for you. And not only that, because of my age, because I am still in my 30s, even though they're removing the uterus, if you leave the ovaries, you still have hormonal cycles. And that is much better for your body long term to go through natural menopause rather than being forced into surgical menopause at my age in my 30s. And there are benefits, long-term benefits for that, like supporting my bone density and important things like that, and like heart health, like, you know, it reduces the risks of like female heart attack and like things like that. So there's definitely some long-term reasons to keep my ovaries in there, especially if I didn't have a gene that was pointing towards ovarian cancer, which I don't. So that was why we decided to keep the ovaries. Sorry this video is so much TMI, but if you're watching a video about a hysterectomy, you're going to get the full spiel. So basically, she wanted to leave the cervix because it gave something for her to anchor everything to, if that makes sense. So basically what she did in this surgery, it's laparoscopic, meaning that they only put 5 very small, like 1-inch incisions in my belly instead of 1 giant incision. One was where the robot went in, one was where the like scope went in so they could see what they're doing. I don't even know what they were all for. Apparently they took everything out through an incision in my belly button. It's all quite crazy and amazing what they can do. But what they did was they went in there and anchored my cervix to my sacrum with a surgical mesh. This was something that she and the other doctor really reassured me about. There was a lot of negative press about mesh a couple years back, but it was I guess in those situations they had been using it in the wrong way and the wrong kind, and it was just basically being used totally wrong in a dangerous kind of way. But when it's used right, it can be really useful and helpful. So that's what they were doing with me. So they used a mesh basically to anchor everything to my sacrum, and basically used my cervix to anchor everything too. So that's what they did in surgery, and it was a really long 7-hour surgery, and I had to be at the hospital at like 5:30 in the morning, some ungodly hour. I did take a little footage on my phone while I was at the hospital. I can stick that in here. Hello everyone. Today is a big day for me. I am going in for a surgery, a pretty major surgery. I am having a hysterectomy. So for all of the TMI nitty-gritty details, I am having this done because of a 3rd, 4th degree uterine prolapse and a detached muscle in there as well. It's pretty bad. So that's what's going on today. It is currently 4:15 in the morning. This is an ungodly hour. I have to be checking in at the hospital at 5:30 in the morning. So we are about to leave in about 10 minutes or so. So probably like my mastectomy, I might do just a little bit of vlogging in the hospital, but if I have a roommate or anything, that would be weird. So I probably won't do too much talking because I would feel self-conscious and weird about vlogging and talking to myself in the hospital. So, but I might just take a little bit of video just for posterity's sake. So anyway, see you at the hospital. Hello guys, I am through my surgery now and I am in recovery. And I am definitely working on pain management, but it was a successful surgery. It went really well, they said, and now it's just time for recovery. It's the middle of the night right now, but I'm awake. I slept for a lot of the evening, and yeah, they have me on the good pain meds, but that's what we're focusing on right now, is getting the pain under control, and hopefully I will be able to be sent home in the morning. So it turns out I have a bit of a fever too, so they're monitoring that. I guess it can happen post-surgery, but they also want to make sure it's not infection, so they'll be doing blood work in the morning to see what's going on with that. Well, I am now home, sweet home, in my own bed, and it feels amazing. I was discharged this afternoon, and my fever went down after a couple of rounds of Tylenol. I talked to the doctor, and she said that's normal for post-surgery to develop a bit of a fever, so I'm glad that that has gone away now. And they made sure that I went to the bathroom. That was an important little detail that they had to make sure I could do on my own before I left, and so that happened, and called Bill, and he came to get me, got all of the good meds, and I am just resting in bed now. So home sweet home, and it feels so good to be home. So yeah, it was a successful surgery. I came out of it definitely very loopy and drowsy and what you would expect for being under anesthesia for 7 hours. But they took really good care of me in recovery. Unfortunately, Bill couldn't be with me again. Like, he wasn't able to be with me for any of my cancer treatments or surgeries because of COVID. Well, one improvement, he was able to be in the waiting room for me before I was admitted into the hospital. That was an improvement, because during all of my cancer stuff, they wouldn't even let him in the door of the hospital. So I guess that was an improvement. But most of the time I was on my own, but I had my phone and I was in contact with Bill. I was in contact with my parents who were watching the kids, and like my closest friends and everything. They had given me one of those little patches that they put behind your ear to help prevent nausea, which was really good with that much anesthesia. But I still came out with a little bit of nausea. But they put Zofran in my IV and that fixed that problem. I was able to pretty much eat pretty soon after, which was really nice. The one slight complication that I had coming out of it was that I spiked a fever when I came out, and they said it was too early to indicate any sort of infection. But when my doctor came in to see me the next morning, she said, yeah, that can happen. That can just be your body's response basically to the trauma of surgery, and having, you know, an abdominal organ removed. That can just be your body's response, is having a fever. So I did end up having a fever for at least 24 hours, and then it kind of went up and down a little bit after I got home, but then it stayed down. So thankfully it wasn't an infection, but it was just my body's response to having this surgery. It went up to like 100.5 or something like that. Then it was at 99 for a while. So thankfully the fever didn't last for long, and I was discharged the next day. They basically had to make sure that I could go to the bathroom by myself, and that they were having me do these breathing exercises to prevent pneumonia after being intubated for so many hours. I had to do, it was like this thing that I had to breathe into, and this little thing would go up. I can't remember, there's a name for this device, I can't remember what that is right now, but that was helping prevent pneumonia because I was having a bit of the urge to cough and had a little bit of fluid in there, but those exercises definitely helped prevent that, so that was good. But yeah, they discharged me the next day. Bill came and picked me up. The nurse wheeled me out to the car and I came home. They definitely had me on the big guns painkillers for a while, the oxycodone, combined with Tylenol and Advil for the first several days until that ran out. And then since then I've just been managing pain with Advil and Tylenol pretty effectively. So other than that, recovery's been slow. To be honest, it's been very slow, but it's moving in the right direction. I'm now a week and a half out from surgery, and I'm feeling like I'm starting to be able to do some normal things again, which is nice. I still spend a lot of my day in bed recovering just because it feels better for my body to be lying down. It hurts to sit right now, especially with the mesh in there and everything that is healing in there. That has been surprisingly the most painful part of recovery. The first few days I was having some pretty sharp pain in the incision, especially where the robot was. She said that would be the most painful one, and it was. I still feel it a little bit now, but it's definitely gotten better. But surprisingly, my pelvic floor has been the most painful aspect of this recovery. It's been very similar to recovering from childbirth in that way. It feels very similar in that way. And you have to do a lot of the same things that you got to do when you're recovering from childbirth. So that felt familiar in that respect. Recovery is coming along nicely. It is slow, but it's slow and steady. It is an abdominal surgery, so I wasn't expecting recovery to be quick or anything. We have incredible family. Ever since I got my cancer diagnosis, we have been in a quarantine pod with my parents and Bill's mom and brother. Now, thank goodness, our parents are vaccinated, which is amazing. And Bill and I might actually be able to get a vaccine really soon as well, but that's a story for another day. But they have been our help all this time with the kids. During my surgery, the kids went to stay at my parents' house, and it was so nice. They have been coming over every day since my surgery, taking turns coming over, and I am just beyond blessed to have such supportive family help me through all this medical stuff that I have had to go through this last year. I do not have any clue how we would be surviving without our family. So enormous thank you to our family. They know how appreciated they are. That is how I have been managing to stay in bed all this time with 3 kids. Their schooling has had to continue because we are part of a hybrid parent partnership program through our district. Their classes have continued, so you should have seen me the week before my surgery. I was like a mad woman getting everything done. We kind of alternate every other week. On like 8 weeks they do virtual classes, so like Zoom class with the teacher with their peers, and then on the off week we choose from a menu of options for those classes to do and we send in their work. So the week before my surgery was the off week. So me and my mom, we were like turbo homeschooling. We were like getting all of their classes done, like a week's worth of classes done in 2 days, because my surgery was on a Tuesday and we got it all done like on Sunday and Monday. We just powered through and we got all of the homeschooling done so that it could be done before my surgery, because I was going to be out of commission out right after surgery, and I was. So I was really glad that we had done that. And I was like, I think I counted, I did like 9 loads of laundry in the few days leading up to my surgery. It was insane. I was like, I'm not gonna be able to do laundry during this time. So I got all the kids' laundry done, my laundry done, sheets, towels, like, you know, all the stuff, and got things lined up. Had to pack for the kids because they were going to stay with my parents for my surgery. So I was like on turbo mom mode leading up to my surgery, and I actually didn't sleep very much the night before because I had to be getting up at 3:30 in the morning to be at the hospital by 5:30 in the morning. So I only slept a couple hours that night, but I was under anesthesia for 7 hours after that, so it all worked out in the end. So this week the kids were on their virtual week, so I had to still get up with the kids and help them get set up with their computers to have their classes, and I was just like sitting on the couch in the background. That was definitely the most activity that I had done the whole week, even though it didn't require much on my part, but just getting them set up and making sure they were logged in on time, and making sure that one of our parents was here or Bill was with me to like run around and get supplies for them, because I couldn't get up and down easily and quickly. I was still doing a lot of coordinating even right after surgery, but it's okay. I don't mind doing it. It actually helps me feel like I am still doing something and having purpose in my recovery. When I stay in bed for too long, I have a tendency to get depressed. That actually happened when I was on bed rest. When I was pregnant with Sophie, I was on bed rest for 2 months, and I actually got pretty depressed during that time because I just feel like I need to be doing something, you know, doing something with my life. So even though it was physically challenging, I think it was good for my mental health to still have to push through a little bit and continue on with homeschooling. So yeah, so that's been going on. I went out and drove for the first time yesterday since my surgery. Went to the library and brought my mom with me so she could do the lifting of the books for me. We have our library system has a contact-free book pickup right now, so that's been fabulous for the kids. But yeah, that's what's been going on, and that's where I've been, and that's why I've had a little hiatus on my channel. But here I am, I'm back. I'm still working on editing all of my vlogs from last year. I'm into the summer vlogs from last year. I've just resigned myself to the fact that I am just going to be putting vlogs up late. They're all going to be kind of throwback vlogs, and that's okay. They're just done for our memories. So I will continue doing those, and I will probably do my Ehlers Danlos Syndrome video really soon as well. So stay tuned for that. That's what's going on in our world, and I hope you all are doing well, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.